So,
oh yes, of course.
The video is just useless to me.
Yes.
You okay with the stories, Lee?
But I can hear everyone's audio.
Yes,
so.
yes, John. Thank you. Yeah, I am prepped and scripted.
We are live on.
We're live.
We are live on YouTube and Discord, by the way. Please do not swear.
There's not been any last-minute changes, has there?
No.
Oh,
well,
lovely.
actually, Roche's bit, we're just dropping an extra little micro story in there. But
No
you know, Roche, it won't be micro.
I say we might get this finished for 3 o'clock.
Something like that. Well, I've got to be in Oxford for 5, so yes. Yes, Darian is out of sync because Darian is on a 4G connection. I will explain all when we start.
Oh, the Discord is commenting. I'm having to wait for Discord to open because, of course, it's downloading updates over my 4G connection.
And it's always 15 updates, isn't it?
Well, it's only one, but it's taken a minute and a half so far.
Hang on, I've lost you.
Maybe it's a massive...
Without giving the game away, Lee, did you like my hot hardware?
You know, I haven't looked too much into it, but I think...
without giving the game away.
Without giving the game away, of course. I think it has potential. I think niche, but I can really see...
Yeah.
I was looking at it, and depending on how it goes, I might get one for my good lady to connect to her
we'll see.
Device.
A thing.
Yes.
It's got 60 seconds to go. This is fuck's sake, I just worked
720.
720, as in McLaren.
Yeah, something like that.
Wait, is anybody watching that Formula One documentary with Keanu Reeves?
Yes, I watched the first one last night.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Amazing. Oh my god. It's
very good.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's really great.
They've done it really well. I recommend it, John.
Yeah.
I shall.
And the guy Ross Brawn wrote a book. This isn't giving anything away. He wrote a book, and the book is going to drop tomorrow on my hallway. It's very good. Suddenly I'm interested in Formula One. Put Keanu Reeves in there.
Roche Nahuna, yes?
Nihuma. Yeah, that's it. Like.
Okay.
Near enough.
They're saying you're a bit quiet, Roche.
Me?
That's a first.
Okay.
So I know.
As in, you've got to have a good sense of to say her name.
You've got to get closer
There
to
we
your
go.
microphone. Try.
Better?
Okay, that's it. Are we ready to go,
Discord
chaps
is
and
still
chappesses?
not open for me. Well, I am. I'm still not on Discord, but I'll just have to live with that.
Okay,
Still
somebody else
loading.
can do the. Can somebody else do the poll when we get there?
Nothing exciting ever happens on Discord. I'm sure we can sort something. Lee is flashing.
Sorry, I need to say it's 1 o'clock and 30 seconds.
Are you
just
ready?
when my edit syncs. Yep.
Good afternoon and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is Thursday, the 28th of November 2024, and this is episode 720. And my name is John Honeyball, contributing editor of PC Pro. With me today, I have the fabulous Darian Graham-Smith.
Hello, everyone.
Darian is actually just moved house up to Cambridge land, so he's a bit worryingly close now. But he is doing this on a 4G mobile connection, so it may turn into a remix of 19 at some point. I also have with me Lee Grant.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And also Roche Nihuna. I think I got that right.
Snuff.
Say hello, my dear.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I don't know. I just one of those surnames I just can't cope with. But there we go. So there we go. And now you thought Honeyball was stupid. Yeah, I know. I'm not throwing rocks here in some things, but never mind. Okay, first story is with you, Darian. It's the return of the wonderful antitrust.
Yeah, it never seems to end this. Microsoft, I guess by dint of being one of the biggest and most influential IT companies in the world, always seems to find itself in some sort of legal hot water or under legal scrutiny or another. In this case, it's been reported that the FTC in the US is looking into Microsoft, basically because of its cloud and software licensing businesses and its cybersecurity services and its AI offerings. And it doesn't take much of a genius to work out that the real real problem is the bundling of them all together. Specifically, it's to do with Azure Cloud and deals which get you productivity software and security software and cloud resources all in one package. This is a kind of a pre-warning. Nothing's really happened yet. At the moment, the agency has just requested, quote, hundreds of pages of documents. They've been involved in, quote, informal discussions with Microsoft's competitors and partners. That must be a good feeling, mustn't it, to be told that someone's been informally talking to your rivals. So I mean, it's not really clear yet what the scope of it's going to be. But I feel like, almost the story is not this particular event, but more the fact that these are becoming so common. It's almost a non-event. Every couple of months we hear about some big national or supranational body launching some kind of competition-related probe into one of the fangs or whatever. Is this a reflection of the world we live in, or is it a case that just they've all been allowed to get too big and all need to be cut down to size one by one?
I don't know. It's an interesting one, this, because those of us with greying hair and beards will remember, 24 years ago, something like that, was the first Microsoft antitrust thing, and that kind of rumbled on for a long time. And then there was the I can't remember quite what the title was, this sort of special person appointed by the EU to keep an eye on Microsoft. And that rolled on for a long time at great cost, as I seem to recall. And whether it was a satisfactory outcome or not is very unclear. Some people at the time said that Microsoft should have split Office away from Windows into separate companies, and that would have been good, but that didn't happen. And who knows, really, with hindsight, what the better outcome would have been. Is this just a case, Roche, of too many lawyers on too many large fees keeping themselves busy, and if they kind of have a weekend off and go fishing, they try and come up with yet another antitrust thing to go after? Or am I just being too cynical?
So look, I think the FTC has got good cause. So essentially there's three things, right? So they're saying substantially increasing the subscription fees, charging steep exit fees, and making the products incompatible. That's pretty serious. And when I looked at it, I thought, like, a company the size of Microsoft should have lawyers that would have been able to unpick this, to see that on the horizon, and then managed it. They should have assessed it, and then they should have managed it. But listen, I think so. Knowing what's coming up today, there's, Hanlon's razor, never attribute to malice what is adequately explained by stupidity. I think Microsoft has just been a bit stupid with this, and I think it needs to be cleaned up. So I don't think it's unfair of the FTC lawyers to have pursued it. I think maybe the lawyers at Microsoft were asleep at the wheel, or that it's so complex, like you said, and it is such a behemoth that trying to keep track of all of these individual things and how they interplay with each other is just too big for any single technical lawyer. I think that's probably the truth of it. And I think, look, I like Microsoft. I think they'll come around, and I think that the same problem wouldn't have happened in the EU, because there's a piece of law that's coming in on 17th of January, which means that so financial entities and ICT third-party suppliers have to have a strategy to manage the exit, which is clearly one of the problems that arises with however Microsoft has structured this entire package. So yes, it's lawyers, but I don't think it's the FTC lawyers.
Yeah, what's your take on this, Lee?
I did a bit of digging into this morning, because as we all know, this isn't really my end of computing. And what I picked up on was a lot of the concerns about security that seems to have also stoked this. Your chum, John, Mary J. Foley, was quoted basically saying that with a lot of Microsoft's products, they seem to be selling security as the premium offering. And this is also underpinning, is it going to be in a lot of this investigation, how that certain security tools are only available as add-ons on top of Microsoft subscriptions, and certain breaches that have been happening over time. could have been prevented if people had access to logging that isn't available on their sort of tier, is only available on the tiers above. So I think there's a bit of that going to be coming out as well, and I think that gets really quite interesting because there's Satya Nadella this week has shoved out a memo which said if you're faced with a trade-off between security and another priority, your answer is clear: do security, which seems to me one of those sort of last-minute rearguard actions. It's a bit like, I don't know. It's a bit like shouting for the toilet roll once, at the wrong end of the proceedings, if you see what I mean. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this goes, and throw another curveball into this. We've got a change in the American presidency and the FTC and all that coming. So this whole thing could just be sort of kicked to one side after a boozy dinner at the White House. So who knows?
Well, yes, it does seem to be the case that sort of American legal cases on all fronts can sort of get knocked around depending upon uh, which is the incoming president or not, naming no names. I don't know. I think this is just going to probably just roll and lots of meetings and lots of shouty and probably some money changing hands, because that seems to be the standard thing until next time round they come around with yet another something. I mean, yes, it's certainly absolutely true that Microsoft's licensing is astonishingly opaque and difficult to understand. And my good friend and friend of PC Pro, Wes Miller, over at Directions on Microsoft, who is like, as far as I know, the world's leading expert on Microsoft licensing, at least certainly up there. His tales of tearing hair out trying to understand the various interconnectedness and so forth of Microsoft licensing. Well, it's a full-time job for him. So I mean, like, if that gives you any idea of just how difficult it is for corporate users to ensure that they're on the right side of this, it's very tricky. I do understand Microsoft's position in terms of licensing compliance, and they have every right to ensure that their customers are compliant on licensing. I get that point. At some point, however, when things get so complicated and so interconnected and convoluted, you do wonder somehow, sometimes, whether this is almost verging on entrapment as opposed to engagement with your customer base. And that's a very wide brush to paint with, I know, but nevertheless, sometimes it can be very difficult. And if the FTC is going into this because they think it's, there's too much interdependency, you can only have this if you have that, and you can't have that if you don't have this, and so forth, then to be honest, from a 30,000-foot view, it's hard to disagree with them. And so from that point of view, I'm with Roche on this, who's obviously a much better legal brain than me. Darian, any other thoughts on this?
No, just, I mean, whose side I'm on. I mean, generally my instinct is towards state-run stuff, regulation, etc. Very consumer friendly, and I guess that implies corporate hostile policies are my default. But I mean, there is an element of several companies. I mean, it's not like Microsoft, it has the entire market to itself. It does have, as the FTC has been speaking to, rivals. It's got rivals of similar size, Google and Apple, obviously, and almost everything it offers, you can also get piecemeal from someone else if you prefer it. So I do not know whether there is an element here of, as the Americans say, punishing success. I'm, as I think I say a lot, I'm quite glad I'm not the one who has to reach a judgment in this.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that yet again we're going to have to sit and watch and see how it goes and see what the outcomes are, and actually at the end of the day see whether they're actually good for us. Roche, you're waving your hand.
Yeah, so I wasn't aware of. So Lee actually touched on a different point to the one I was talking about. So I think that the FTC's position and the one where that I began with, I think that that's fair, and I don't think it's aggressive, and I think it's necessary, and I think it's probably a mistake by Microsoft. But Lee was talking about sort of um, uh, creating like a wall for products that you couldn't then access unless you had certain tiers. And actually, I think Microsoft's position, it's a free market. You can engage with whoever you want. You're able to contract with whoever you want on whatever terms. And provided the terms are clear to the consumer, like Microsoft isn't a charity. So if it wants to say you can only access this product if you have all of these. I actually don't have a problem with that. That's just how they've decided to stack it commercially for them. I do have a problem with them hiking up their subscription fees if someone wants to leave, or creating punitive terms if somebody wants to exit, or making their tool incompatible so that leaving is disruptive to a business. They're the things that I agree with the FTC on, but for for not making available to the entire market certain products, that's just commerce, you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, I agree with you, 100% on all of those points, Roche. I think my point
Mm,
was more that, this industry, and it's not just Microsoft, it's Oracle, it's all the other big
mm,
players in here, have had convoluted licensing, whether it's per server or per CPU or per core or per banana, or it's a
mm,
Thursday, or it's a Thursday and a banana, but it's not a Thursday and a banana if you're in France. And are you on site or are you off site, or are you directly connected or are you not directly connected? And are you directly connected and have a banana? And it's that kind of convolution. I mean, I'm giving ridiculous examples, obviously, but heck, you don't have to go far to find examples like that from just about every player at this end of the market. And so anyway, we will obviously keep an eye on this and see what happens. Now, Lee, Microsoft seems to be doing advertising for Windows 11.
Yes, absolutely. I arrived at our shop this morning and fired up the Windows 10 laptop, which runs our ticketing system, and up popped Microsoft's latest attempt to persuade me to buy a new PC. It's a full screen advert. Start planning for Windows 10 end of support. And basically, it's saying that, as what we all know, from October 2025, Microsoft will no longer provide free security updates. They also say, we're reaching out to you to thank for your loyalty. And to help you prepare for what's next, which is an interesting twist on retail psychology. But there you go. Now, Microsoft have been running this campaign for a few weeks. You may have actually seen it yourself if you're running Windows 10. My machine's Windows 10 Pro, so this is the version that Microsoft's marketing team have deemed I'm having, and it's different to the one that I saw in the week, which was from a flustered Windows 10 home user. And his notification said, do more with the new Windows 11 PC. So that's more of the overtly just buy a new machine. At which point, and I quote, I don't want to do more with a new PC. I want to do the same, and I want them to sod off. So, if Microsoft want to talk to this customer, I'll see if I can hook you together. I'd love to see you go at it. Of both versions that I've seen, and I'm sure there are many more variations out there, there's no upfront mention of the ESU. So this is the extended security update, which the podcast covered a few weeks ago. Just to reiterate for those that missed it, the ESU rolls out in 2025, and it gives the options of a $30 Windows 10 extension for another year. And if you think about it, current estimates state there are about 240 million incompatible machines in use. So even a single-digit percentage of that lot taking the $30 option is a very nice earner for Microsoft. So there's big money at stake here. As I said, this ESU doesn't get mentioned. It does get mentioned in the frequently asked questions, which is a couple of clicks away and well past all the other adverts and sales patter for new machines. So just a friendly note, just from PC Pro, to say that Microsoft's campaign is active, and if if you're the tech support person for your friends and family, you may be getting a phone call.
Well, it's one of those things, isn't it, that there's probably not much point at this moment in time in talking about paying for the upgrade, because I guess they want your money next year, in the hope that maybe you've moved on to Windows 11. So it'll come probably a last-ditch thing around April next year, I'm guessing. If you really do want to stay there and stay supported, give us your money. I mean, to be honest, the $30 for a year, I can see people being tempted by that. I mean, I've got my long-suffering Dell XPS 27 all-in-one to my left, which is now, I think we worked out, it's 7 years old, and it's running all sorts of technical software, like running the audio precision and the D-scope and Calman and so forth, and it does a perfectly reasonable job. There's absolutely no need to replace it whatsoever. And if to stay supported on Windows 10 I have to cough up $30, I probably would for another year. I won't, for the simple reason that the screen's delaminating and therefore it's going to fail at some point. So it really is time for new hardware, which of course will be Windows 11. But yes, I could certainly see people coughing up. Doesn't it double every year? Isn't it $30, then $60, then 120, or is that what they're doing for business customers?
Yeah, that's the business one. The domestic one, as far as we're aware, is it's a one shot. It's a one shot only. You
So
get
it's a
the
1
extra
year
year.
only.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, still $30. You just extend it for a year, and rather than feeling you've got to crash out and change everything.
Well, it's interesting. I've been talking to various people in the repair community at the moment about what's their strategy for repairing Windows 10 machines, because of course people go to repair cafes to have things fixed. And the discussion was basically, do we say, okay, that's going to be end of life, we can't fix it because it won't upgrade to Windows 11? Do we try and shove Linux on it, or do we actually go for the mystery box third option, which is we run Windows 11 but we put the hacks in to get it to run on a Windows 10 on unsupported hardware? And there's a lot of people doing this online at the moment, have been doing it for several years with, at the moment, in brackets, and this doesn't constitute official PC Pro advice, with no adverse side effects, and it fully updates. So it'll be interesting to see in the end what the final result of this will be.
Yeah, I mean, whilst it would of course be very tempting to take these hackomatic things to get this Dell to update, delaminating screen notwithstanding, I absolutely certainly couldn't do that because it's a machine used here in the lab, in an accredited test lab, and I have to be able to prove the state of the machine. And a machine
Agreed.
that's got hacks in its operating system is completely out of court. And that would, of course, apply to people working in the financial services markets and all sorts of other places which have got elements of regulation around it. Darian, are you going to cough up your $30?
Well, of course, I've moved long ago because I'm one of those people who always gets excited about every shiny new update, even if I shouldn't. My only real concern about this is that it seems, stop me if I'm wrong, I mean, Lee will have seen this far more than I, but it seems that every time Microsoft has something new to push, be that, a new browser or a new operating system or whatever, a new deal on something, it comes up with a different way of nagging you. You get these kind of unique one-off full screen ads or pop-ups or interstitials. And I think this is very bad from a UX point of view because it's, you can't consistently anticipate what your PC is going to do. And it therefore becomes bad from a security point of view because it teaches people, as we've discussed before, that some completely unfamiliar, never before seen pop-up that appears on your computer saying you must do this now could well be legitimate. So I don't necessarily object to, ending support for Windows 10, which is now will have been with us for a full decade through its various updates. And I think giving a paid for extension on support is a good thing. But yeah, the way they're going about it makes me a bit uncomfortable.
And what's your thoughts on this, Roche?
I have none.
Oh, that's very nice, sweet and simple then, isn't it? So, okay, that's fine. And Lee, we're not done quite yet. Steam.
Yeah,
Have they
battering
gone
out
off
the
the boil?
Yeah, hey, absolutely.
Hey.
Yeah, so Steam, it's rolled out its November 2024 update, which has brought a few new features, including a built-in game recording thing, which apparently this is very exciting. What's less exciting is that Steam support for old OSs, basically namely 7, 8, 8.1, and in the Mac platform, High Sierra and Mojave. Is that how we say it? I never did get 10.14. Basically, that it's going to be the last one that does it. In fairness to Valve, they did announce this last year, but once again, and this always seems to happen, last year becomes this year. I don't know how that works. And the reasoning is that it's Steam is based on Chromium, and it's the new version of that which doesn't support the OSs. So basically, Steam just has to sort of follow suit. Now, if you're on the older platforms running this, your games are not about to stop working. Do not panic. But you won't get things like patches. You won't get things like updates. You won't be allowed to sort of do anything. So there isn't been an official you're going to have to move or you can't play notice yet. I guess they won't be too keen to do that. However, if you are on Windows 7 and 8, you could try an upgrade to Windows 10. I mean, officially the window has closed, but an unofficial computer repair person in Yorkshire would tell you that in certain circumstances it still does work for reasons that we won't get into at this moment. And if you're on a Mac, you can try Open Core Legacy Patcher, which might shuttle you forward a few things, but the end is nigh for those platforms.
I mean, it's always a difficult point, isn't it, about how far back should an app support an operating system, and you don't need to go far crawling around Google's Play Store for Android to find apps that support Android all the way back to Android 5. And you do wonder whether the overall sense of doing this. Apple is somewhat more aggressive here in terms of forcing developers and threatening to throw them out the App Store unless they're moderately reasonably comfortable. I must confess I don't have a problem with Steam dropping that kind of legacy OS. In fact, to be blunt, I'm surprised they're still there. Darren, is this going to impact you?
No, I do my gaming. I've always kind of enjoyed doing gaming on the big screen in the living room, but I do have to fight with my family for the use of that. So I go to the other extreme and do it on my little. You know, they say the best camera is the one that's always with you. Similarly, the best gaming console is the one that's always with you. I know that the Steam Deck, is that right? Not Stream Deck, Steam Deck, is indeed portable, but nevertheless, my phone is more portable and always in my pocket, and they can do incredible things. I mean, every phone that comes along since about, I don't know, 2016 has easily exceeded anything I could ask of it in terms of processor power, storage, etc. And until very recently, until I made a very recent move in terms of network connectivity as well. Now I'm a little bit less cocksure about that. But in general, I personally, although I do like to play a game now and then, I don't see the need for dedicated gaming hardware at all anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I confess, I like you. If I want to play a game, I have my iPhone 16 Pro Max with me, and that's got more horsepower than seems even relevant. And if I do want to do something bigger, we do have our dedicated test gaming machine here with whatever it is, 3090 or whatever inside it, and it's just an animal. And 240 hertz refresh screens. Roche, are you a gamer?
But I love the PS5, the VR. It's so like honestly, if you want, rather than have a spa day, pop that thing on your head. Like you can just get lost in. In fact, earlier on in the week, I was talking to a guy who's the original internet godfather, and we were talking about this shoot 'em up game. Anyway, um, yeah, Pistol Whip. That's what it's called. It's just absolutely brilliant.
That
So,
sounds like
and
a
the reason,
specialist game, doesn't it?
yeah. So the reason I got the PS 5 is because I was got. Do you remember Time Crisis, where you had it in the arcades?
Yeah, with the gun.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, blue and a pink gun. So
Yeah.
about a year ago or so, I thought, oh, I really want to buy that machine. Um, but I don't really have the space for it. Whereas the PlayStation is much smaller, and offers you like a broader range of stuff. And if you don't have it, get one. If you have to borrow, if you have to sell a kidney, get yourself a PS5 with the VR. It's amazing.
But isn't it correct to say
It's amazing.
people that Sony have dropped the VR headset? They're not making it
What?
anymore. Have I
No,
misread that or?
you must have because so the earlier version, so on the PS4 or whatever, it wasn't great. This is now it's not quite the headset thing that you brought to Soho,
Apple
but
Vision
it's
Pro.
amazing. Yeah. It's not it's nowhere near, but you don't need that level of detail because you just feel so immersed in it. Oh, and by the way, Australian scientists have checked crabs and bugs. Yeah, and they've immersed them in in like the sort of the VR world, and they react. So crabs and bugs will react in the VR world.
How do you get a headset onto an ant?
I have no
Carefully.
idea. I don't like I don't know. I just read that article. Anyway, I'm all for it.
And
I
that's
love it.
just positively surreal from Roche, but that's why we love you so much. Um, okay, we've got some sort of AI niblets, of course, because AI just keeps rolling on like the sort of the rolling migraine. So we've got some this week for you. We'll kick off with you, Roche, about Google and links.
Yeah, so actually it's a shame that this is a news in brief because this would merit a deep dive, and I don't know what is going on with Google. Maybe they've seen what Disney has done to its brand and it thinks we'll have a slice of that. I don't really know, but this is a huge story. So the
Well,
headline
dive
is
into it, Roche, and we'll scream stop. How about that?
Okay. All right. Okay. So Google. So the headline is that the iOS app now injects links on third-party websites that go back to search, and it says it's introduced a new feature that injects links on third-party websites that take users back to Google search. I'm horrified, quite frankly. But I think that they've written it like that because it's entrepreneurial zinger. Because if they had written it like this, Google are defacing people's websites without their permission in a kind of commercialized cross-site scripting scam. Doesn't sound as, enticing, but it's presented as a new feature. Um, and admittedly, their presentation has more pizzazz and zinger than simply saying we've defaced your website. It's similar, like in the same way that Anonymous or Lulzec would have done this. Google are like, oh, but we've created an opt out. Have you? Where are your lawyers, man? So, number one, silence isn't consent. You can't infer that somebody has consented to this because they haven't completed a form, but it gets worse. So, it takes 30 days apparently. So a small business owner doesn't want its website defaced by Google, completes the form, and then it's supposed to take 30 days. I like Even if they'd had a couple of interns at Google to kind of, I don't know, spitball this over lunch, they would have been like, this is like trespassing. And there are lots of remedies that small businesses would have available if they've got deep pockets and the teeth and you know, the bandwidth to do it. And I don't know what's going on with Google, but if they don't have lawyers that would have been able to figure this out quite quickly, Google, call me.
So
That's
they are basically inserting their own stuff into somebody else's web page. Well, that's a very good reason not to use Google's iOS app. And actually, it's the sort of thing you could see Apple getting quite snarky about. Um, and because they've kicked up bigger fusses over smaller things. Lee, are you how horrified are you about this?
I'll be honest. I knew nothing about this at all. And all right, I have a website that probably is viewed by about 3 people every year, so it's not of a great concern to me. But
Oh, it's growing then.
absolutely, yes. Well,
Fabulous.
two of them are me, so it doesn't really count. But as Roche said, you can't infer from silence, and so it'll be interesting to see how this rolls, and because surely at some point someone has got to say no, 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 you can't do that, and yeah, it's sneaky one this.
I mean, the whole sort of wrapping web pages in, was it wrapping them in iframes that hotels used to do?
Yeah.
This never ends well. Darian, just how spitting mad are you?
Quite spitting mad, actually. I mean, wrapping web pages in iframes is quite despicable. But actually, if I've understood correctly, injecting your own code into someone else's web page feels like it ought to be quite seriously illegal. I'm amazed that this was considered, let alone that it's been rolled out seemingly with sort of no consultation and no fanfare.
Was it the case? What's the phrase? Um, you ask for forgiveness rather than ask for permission or something, and that seems to be the West Coast way. Okay, on to our next sort of AI niblet thing. There was a sort of a news going viral that Microsoft was using your Office documents to train its AI. And this has received quite a slap down from Microsoft saying, no, they're not looking at your documents and they're not training their AI engines off your document store, because obviously immediate concerns about medical records and legal documents that lawyers are working on and so on and so forth. There's no way you would want an AI to be trained on those. Even such luminary as the inestimable Frank Shaw, who those of us of many years will remember, Frank, who is head of communications at Microsoft in Redmond, and a quite formidable person if you get on the wrong side of him, but also a great guy too. So I'm getting that in quickly. He's come in and said, absolutely, we're not doing this. And there is a setting in Microsoft 365. He says, quote, it only enables features requiring internet access like co-authoring a document. Now, if Microsoft is shall we say, a little bit more sensible and cautious than the likes of Google, it would appear, on the basis of the previous story. And I can't imagine Microsoft being quite so stupid to try and pull off this stunt. Roche, does this make your toes curl, or are you reassured by the statements?
So, oh my gosh. Right. So there's another great story, and but it's the headline that caught my attention. It's all of a sudden Joe Blow can see the CEO's emails, and of course they can if you haven't implemented, like, access control measures. So it's just, this is a cautionary tale for businesses everywhere. You need to make sure that not only are you giving access only to the people who need it, but also to the tools that need it, because what you don't want is autopilot telling you you're going to be made redundant by just asking for it to throw together a presentation on how the business is going. So,
Yeah, I mean, access
yeah.
controlists are everything. And finally, on this space, Roche, we're going to see a lot of book publishing.
Okay, so, you know, remember The Usual Suspects, where, oh, if you haven't watched The Usual Suspects, look away now because there's a spoiler coming, where you didn't know that Verbal Kint was like Kaiser Soze, and then you realize that Agent Kujan was getting fed all of this information. Oh my gosh, I think Leah's having a meltdown. But so, yeah, so your source is so important. And so I am going to frame this story from the outset to say this was a story that was in the Guardian newspaper. Make of that what you will. Okay. So it's kind of a non-story, but the fact that it's in the Guardian, I think, tells you everything you need to know. So it turns out that there's a company called Spine, and they plan to publish 8,000 books using AI. And I read through the article, and I'm not sure what the fuss is about. It is oops, I've lost everybody. It's a free market. You can contract with whomever you like. The independent publisher Canongate were criticizing Spine, which is okay. You're free to make whatever comments, and they called Spine dingbats, and I happen to agree, but I also happen to think you don't have to like everything, but you don't have to throw shade on the things that you don't like. And this is what I think is happening in this article on Spine. So Spine's offering to the market is they're saying, we're going to give self-publishing authors an opportunity to get into the market. You just have to pay us a small fee. Okay. Do I think it's attractive? No. Would I want to do it? No. Do I hate the idea? Not really. So, the publishing pool is big enough for everybody. Do I think that this will Spine is going to be a massive commercial success? Probably not. But, roll the dice and see what they get. This is why it's kind of like a non-story. There's a company that does something that doesn't seem great, but have at it. They're not
Darian,
doing
what's
anything
your thoughts,
unlawful.
Darian?
I'm sorry, I just had a bit of a glitch there, so I missed what I think is the most important point, which is, are we saying that the AI simply makes editing recommendations? This isn't about flooding the market with books entirely created by AI, is it? It's something much more anodyne, am I right?
Yeah, you're precisely right. It is just going to do a little bit of editing and a little bit of proofreading, probably spell check, grammar check,
Well, I could use that.
So it's just like what Word already does.
Yeah, 100%. But they'll charge an author for it, which is why I think it's kind of it's not very interesting, and I also don't see the value to the author. But I don't see the value of a season ticket for Millwall. But I'm not going to read an article about it. Whatever blows your hair back.
Well, you should.
Any thoughts, Lee?
No, I like I say, this is sort of a Grammarly shop, isn't it? I remember, go back 20 years ago, there was a shop in the town that opened that was the eBay shop. So instead of you doing your eBay packaging, basically you went and took whatever you wanted to sell. They packaged it, sorted it out, took a small commission, and off you went. And I guess this is sort of the same sort of thing. They're just taking the legwork out of a piece of software that does the legwork. I'd be interested in knowing the T's and C's. What happens if your book becomes a mega multi-million bestseller? How much of the rights they might retain? So I guess the devil might be in the detail for this one. But yeah, it did. When I
Did that
sort of
really
glanced through,
happen? The eBay shop was definitely in a film at some point as a.
no, we had one. I mean, this is Huddersfield, so it's cutting edge. You've got to understand that, Darian. You know,
Wow.
But yeah, no, there was a shop you could go. You could go down with your golf club and say, "Here, for heaven's sake, package that and send it to Scandinavia," and they would sort it all out and do it. It didn't last amazingly long, but it was a thing.
Oh, goodness me.
In fact, people used to come to us and ask us to do their eBay for them because they couldn't do it.
Amazing what you learn on a Thursday afternoon, live on Discord on the PC Pro channel, where we have our usual lovely group of mad people there, chattering away and giving their opinions. Moving on, because we're running a bit behind time here, chat, with you, Darian, about Huawei.
Yeah, Huawei, they've announced their new Mate 70 series smartphones. And what's interesting about this is, Huawei's been swimming against the tide a bit for a while because US sanctions have meant it hasn't been able to get all the parts and processor thingies that it might have wanted to. And also, it hasn't been able to use the full Android mobile platform. It hasn't been able to give you Google Play, Google Maps, and all of that. They've been using the standard open source AOSP distribution. And they've been kind of adding their own customizations, as one does, to make what they've been calling Harmony OS or Harmony OS. But the new Mate 70 series is the first one that's going to use Harmony OS Next, which is the first one that fully breaks compatibility with Android. It's completely their own platform, built on Linux like Android, but otherwise using their own app distribution system, their own microkernel, and so forth. And it's, I suppose, a bold but inevitable move for them if they wanted to keep making phones at all. But I know it just raises the question, would you be happy? We've been asking this for a long time. Are you happy using a phone which doesn't have the full set of Google services? Now are you happy using one that you can't even sideload Google's, can't sideload Gmail onto it, for example. And I mean, the instinctive answer is when we talked about this before, when Huawei, made clear they were going to continue making Android phones even without Google, we sort of said, well, no, I mean, it's the whole point of Android is you get the Google ecosystem. But I don't know, maybe something's taken the shine off Google, or maybe I'm just feeling a little bit more militant in the light of things like, as we discussed, the Microsoft FTC investigation that's going on, and all those similar competition investigations, because I do sort of find myself thinking, well, actually, I rather like the idea of rolling my own phone distribution with my own choice of what does email, what does maps, what does cloud syncing, and so on. Huawei says they've got more than 15,000 applications ready to roll for the new operating system. So although the specific game or specific program you want might not be available, you'll probably be able to do most things. I think if the price is aggressive and the hardware is tempting, I wouldn't necessarily rule it out.
Which was the president that brought in the block on Huawei being able to use Google? Was it Trump or was it Biden?
It was everyone's favorite president. Yes, it was Trump.
So, okay, so my thought process here was it's unlikely he's going to unwind that come January. It's not like Huawei has got a light on the horizon.
It seems unlikely, but you can never tell with that chap.
Well, yes, there we go. Lee, would you like a Linuxy, fully openy kind of operating system thing on your phone?
I don't think I would because frankly the phone is there to sort of enhance your life, make life easier for you, and the last thing I need in my life is to have to fight with a phone. I understand Darian's point about the roll your own, I get it, but for me personally, it's not an attractive offer, and I have a funny feeling this isn't going to be an attractive offer for a lot of people. You mentioned Linux there, John, and this reminded me straight away, it is like trying to sell a PC with Linux on it, and it's very hard to do, because if there is a very small market out there, and there'll be a lot of them listening to this podcast that like Linux and they love it, but as a mass market thing, it's never quite made it. And I think this could be a sink or swim moment for these people, as far as certainly outside of their domestic market, because trying to get off the ground and compete with iOS and Android don't underestimate how tough that is. And when they say they've got 15,000 apps in the App Store, we saw how many apps Microsoft had in the App Store when that launched, and that was still abominable. So, this could be the last hurrah.
Yes, I mean, Microsoft's Windows for phones is much missed by many, and it certainly, in some terms of its front end tiling system, had many interesting design features there and so forth, but they never really managed to get, in terms of really big mainstream, off the ground compared to iOS and Android, which is sad. And I certainly would have wished that they had done a new version of Windows Mobile to take on the other two and come up with something major and significant there. Roche, do you have a legal take on this, or are you fairly neutral on that front?
I'm neutral on most of it, but I really liked Lee's comment about not wanting to fight with his phone. So, what I would like, if if anyone who designs or engineers phone is listening, is if you could, like when you have all of your apps open, that you just push one button to shut, like just one button that shuts all of the apps, and your phone becomes accessible. Because I needed to use my phone really quickly during the week, and man alive, like it was just okay, it was three buttons, but it was an emergency. And I just thought, really, what we need, especially if you're outdoors and you've got apps like maps and stuff like that rolling in the background, that you're able to push one button one time and come straight through to your phone.
But
Otherwise, I'm going to
but
have to
both on
like,
Android and iOS, isn't there a I'm just looking here. Oh no, on iOS there isn't, is there? There is on Android. There is a close all apps button. Darian.
yeah, but that takes three.
I was just going
Goes
to
through.
say, I think
Yeah,
that
yeah. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, it does take a couple of taps, but also I'm not sure it's on everybody's version of Android. This is
Ah,
where I hate to kind of give any credit to Steve Jobs, but I do believe that's a thing that gets customized differently depending on whether you're using a Samsung, a OnePlus, a Pixel, etc. So annoyingly, you can't just learn and know this is how I do it, especially not if you're someone like me who hops back and forth between phone manufacturers trying to get the best of each generation. In fact, you end up just stymieing yourself because all your muscle memory gets screwed.
right. It's time to move on to nibs because we're running on with time, and let's try and do some nice brief and quick and snippy nibs. Never work, will it? I know, but never mind. First nib is with you, Lee.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this one's not that brief, I'm afraid. Windows 11 Update 24H2 looks like a real contender to snatch the title of Microsoft's most problematic update from XP Service Pack 1. At the start of the week, Microsoft confirmed that it was working on fixes which seem to be crashing some Ubisoft games. And when I say crash, we're talking about unresponsive screens, black screens, NTL, DLL errors, the usual good stuff. Now, the reports suggest the games affected are, open your ears, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Origins, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Star Wars Outlaws, Star Trek In-Laws, and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which sounds like a dodgy film from the 70s. My mate found in his brother's wardrobe. There's also reports of Far Cry 5 and, God, another one, Assassin's Creed Unity. I'm sure I've mentioned that. The details of exactly what is happening under the bonnet haven't yet emerged. Microsoft has put a compatibility hold on devices with these games installed, which will stop 24H2 installing. However, if this all sounds frustratingly familiar, and you're already on 24H2, then open Settings, go to System, go to Recovery, select Go Back under Recovery Options. Unfortunately, this option is only available if you installed 24H2 within the last 10 days. Failing that, the one option is to perform a wipe and reset, being cautious not to reinstall 24H2 in the process, or sit it out and wait for Microsoft Ubisoft to fix it.
There we go. Next nib is with me. Synology's BC500 cameras. We like Synology cameras. They're very clear. They're very fast. They integrate fabulously well with the Synology platform, as you would expect. And for me, they're a hit. I've got several of them on various sites, and I needed two more for the lab because two of my ancient but very expensive Axis cameras had died. Went to try and buy them, not in stock. Tried a month later, still not in stock. Tried all sites. Europe, UK, not in stock. And in the end, I reached out to Synology marketing department and said, are these end of life actually? And they said, no, they're still available, just rather difficult to get hold of. I said, oh, well, what a pity. and this was obviously with my PC Pro hat on, and they said, we can send you two. So I said, oh, okay, and here's the address, please send me an invoice for them. And they sent me two, and I still haven't had an invoice, but I will be chasing them on that, and fitted them, and they're fabulous. Turns out yesterday they went back into stock at places like broadbandbuyer.com. So they are back in stock if you are one of the many people trying to get hold of BC500 camera and the dome ceiling mount version. It would appear that some suppliers have now received stock. Next nib is back with you, Lee, about Intel.
Yeah, Intel's funding from the US government has been slashed by $600 million. Back in 2022, Biden signed the CHIPS and Science Act into law, which is basically a $52 billion package to provide financial assistance to American semiconductor firms. Basically, the idea was for Intel to make chips in the USA again. Now, given Intel's layoffs and financial hemorrhagings that we've spoken about over several times, you'd be forgiven that thinking that the US bean counters are nervous about Intel's ability to deliver their bit of the CHIPS Act, but that's not it. Intel have recently been awarded a £3 billion US military contract, so this funding is part of the cut of them getting that contract.
Well, there we go. And final nib is with me. It seems that QNAP, QNAP, well-known purveyor of high-quality network-attached storage NAS boxes, pushed out a software update, firmware update, which prevented some owners of some versions of their products unable to log in, and a reset didn't appear to clear it. So clearly there was something really quite unpleasant going on there. They've sent out a new version, but in a way that really does make my heckles rise. They've reissued the firmware with exactly the same version numbering on it as the one that was causing problems. And I don't know about you, but when something goes out with a version number of QTS 5.2.2.2950 build 20241114, I think someone in the version control world needs to be taken out and shot, because this is really unhelpful stuff. Tell me it's version 5.2 and it's the date, and then that'll do. Thank you very much. Anyway, they seem to be trying to recover from this, and people are still having problems. Their big arch rival, of course, Synology, have not been without problems this month. Last night they sent out a second emergency update for the Synology OS platform for their NASs on the back of one 3 weeks ago, where there were 0-day exploits that nasty people could take advantage of. So they've had two this month. Of course, if your Synologies are entirely behind firewalls with no incoming routes and no connectivity to the internet and so forth, you're probably okay. But if you have got Synologies facing the internet with open ports, then some of these things may have been a problem. So definitely update. I confess my Synologies auto update at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just let them get on with it. So that's Synologies and QNAP issues. That leads us straight into hot hardware. And I think this is actually quite hot. I'm just about to post the link over into our live Discordness, and it is. I'm going to stand it up here and wave it in front of the camera for those to see. Can you see that? I can't see. Let me bring that window here. It's a little screen. It is a touch screen monitor. It is 14-inch. It's HDR. It's 1920 by 1200 pixels. It will crank its way up to a magnificent. Sorry, I put the wrong link in there. Let me try that. I left off the last character. My bad. Shoot me. It will do 1920 1200 400 CDM squared. So it's not the brightest thing in the world, but it's perfectly reasonable. It does sRGB color space. I wouldn't want to use it for anything terribly color critical. So why are we interested in this? Well, here's the reason. The connectivity on it is interesting. It's got USB-C and it's got HDMI. So anything that has an HDMI output, you can bang into this and wire it up. It also has USB-C, which you can use for one of two ways. One of which is you actually just connect from your laptop or whatever you want to connect to it over USB-Cs. and it will provide power to the screen, and it will provide the video if you can do video streaming over USB-C, and it will do the touch screen multi-touch going back up to the PC. Um, I've actually got it connected up here as an extension screen against alongside my 5K Apple Monster monitor, just as an extension little screen here to get it up and running. And I've got my screen extended, well, not extended, yes, extended sideways onto it. It's perfectly reasonable. It's got a nice matte display finish on it, so it's pretty anti-reflective. It's not heavy. It's really quite light, and it's a 14-inch. It's 16 by 10 aspect ratio. That was the dimensions here. Yeah, 12. It's 12.4 by 8.4 inches, and it's only 0.39 of an inch thick. It has a foot stand on the back, so you can fold it out and stick it down on the tabletop, and it's also got mounting screws. It only weighs 2.4 pounds, so it's pretty lightweight. And given that you don't need to carry a brick of a power supply with you, it's very easy to drop this into a backpack and carry it with you, or into a carry case alongside your laptop, if you want to have if you want to have a second screen to expand your laptop. It's perfectly reasonable. It's not high end, and it comes in with the marvelous cost of just £95.95, Inc. VAT 79.96 ex VAT. I'm sure there are alternatives out there from other vendors. This is a vendor, Showscren, who I've never heard of. It's available through Amazon. I haven't seen it anywhere else. So this is kind of your no-name Chinese imported thing. I'm not wishing to talk it down. It is what it is. And if you're wanting a 1920 by 1200 14-inch screen that you can power straight off a laptop as a second screen, or into anything else that you just want to shove onto HDMI. Maybe you want to connect up a Raspberry Pi. Maybe you want to nail this onto the wall and use it with a Raspberry Pi and a touch interface to control stuff in your home or something. There's a whole range of uses that this can be put to, and at 14-inch it's a usable size and a usable resolution. They do a smaller version. They do an 8-inch version, which doesn't look quite so cute, but it's only 8 inches, and that's only £47.99. So you can have a smaller one, or this one, the bigger one, which I'm going for. And it just kind of works. What more is there to say about it? I could waffle on and waffle on, but it is what it is. Darian, have you got any thoughts or questions?
Well, I was going to ask what you personally would use it for, but I think you've answered that. It's the portability thing that I'm finding a little bit harder to get my head around, because I sort of just feel like if you're traveling, if you're already in that scenario where you're sitting at a little hotel desk or something, I think I don't feel like I would want to bother to have to set up a dual display setup in that already compromised situation. But maybe that's me. Maybe I'm just being naive. Otherwise, I'm just curious also, because it looks like the 14-inch one is quite slim, but the 8-inch one, which I know is not
Looks
our
quite
focus
chunky.
here, looks very chunky in the picture.
Exactly
Yeah,
so.
it looks
We're
like
talking here
they're
about the
sourced from
14.
completely different manufacturers.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
yes.
talking here about the
14 is also a
14.
little bit big, I think.
Well, if
Yeah,
if
14 here is also a little bit big
look at it
to
from this
just
point of view,
stick in a.
if you were carrying, say, a MacBook Air 14-inch or a 14-inch Windows laptop with you, then one of these gives you a significant increase in your desktop space without having to carry a much bigger laptop around. And that means that the bag can be smaller. So I can see use cases where that's easier. What was it? The carry-on case that I was talking about I think in the next issue of the magazine, that carries a 14-inch laptop very nicely, but a 16 is a bit more of a squeeze. So there's lots of places where that kind of size matters, and having a second screen. Let's say you're on a laptop and you're wanting to do PowerPoint and you want to do preview on one and notes on the other, for example. That kind of split screen feature suddenly becomes really useful. So I think there's quite a lot of use cases here. As I said, I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to do anything color accurate on it. It's not, it's not high color accuracy stuff. That's not the purpose of it. But for what it is, and frankly, at 80 odd quid plus VAT, if it gets broken or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Um, so that was kind of my thoughts on it. Roche, is it something something that appeals to you?
So in all of the hardwares, I've never thought I'm buying this as soon as I leave this meeting, and I'm getting this,
Why is
and
that?
it's be
What is it?
well.
What does it do for you?
Okay, so there's two things. First of all, I need a second screen. I used to just have an Apple and I had like one big screen. Then I went on to PC. Now I have two screens. I cannot operate on one screen alone. So like you said, you have a document open, you're needing to create like a PowerPoint, and then you want to be able to scroll up. Two screens is indispensable. It's so indispensable to me that when I leave, like so if I head off to see family and I'm working from their homes, I will pack up my monitor with me because I just cannot operate on a single screen. And then really where you got me is you mentioned lightweight. You said it's like 2.4 pounds. So not only do I have another screen, which is reasonably priced, that'll just do the job because that's all I need it to do when I'm traveling. Um, it's light. Oh my gosh, everybody just needs to make things lighter
And not
and
needing a
more.
power supply, being powered off
Oh,
USB-C, I think is a big tick plus. I noticed
yeah.
over on Discord with our people there. John Bennell says very useful for site work. He's absolutely correct. You go into a data center and you've got a headless server, and you need to be able to see what's going on, and plugging a screen in is really useful. And having that in your kit bag of useful stuff is, I think, quite hot. Maybe even something
Depending
that
on the
Lee
platform,
would be.
also because because it's a touch screen, you could even bring up a virtual keyboard,
Oh, potentially
perhaps.
so, Darian. Lee, does it tempt you?
It really does. Not for me personally, but for Mrs. Grant, who does a lot of PowerPointy things and uses her laptop as as basically a digital score for when she's playing music and things like that. She has to have. She's had a succession of foldy, screeny laptops. Working 20 years in computer retail, I really know what they're called now. The tent laptops, the ones that fold back on themselves with the broken hinges. So she's had a series of those, and one of these just very much does away with all that the need for that. It's particularly with the touchscreen, she can waft left and forward. Where I think I would use it possibly is wiring it into my iPad and just having that second screen, as Roche said. When you get used to a multi-monitor setup, it is really quite clunky sometimes. Just going back to a single screen, and throwing one of these in your bag just solves that instantly, and it does work very nicely with iOS and Android. From what the bump says, what I also saw was it also works very nicely with the Nintendo Switch. So if you want a bit of portable gaming, you can shove that in and have a bit of a slightly bigger screen. So I think there's a lot to love here. The fact that it is a no name brand absolutely reduces the chances of you getting any parts or possibly even any warranty sort of with this, but and I guess spare parts and stuff like that are absolutely not going to be found for love nor money. But at 95 quid, I think you could probably do a lot worse, because if you're buying it from Amazon, they will support it for a year, so you'll get at least a year out of it before it goes bang. Yeah, I like it.
I must confess, I've got it here sat alongside my, was it the 5K Apple? I can't remember what the name of the thing is. The 1,500 quid Apple monitor, and it doesn't look stupid. And moving things between the windows doesn't look stupid, even though there's no way does it have anything like the crispness or color accuracy or brightness or all the other lovely things you get with a 1,500 quid monitor, let alone a 5 grand monitor. So for 80, 90 quid, chuck it in your bag. Doesn't need a power brick. You can run it off a battery powered device. To me, it ticks all the boxes. Captain Crumb, does it have a kickstand? Yes, it does. There is, if I can wave it here in front of you here, there is a little kickstand thing, if I can fold it out, that comes out the back, as you can see now. And there's also screw mounting points, so you could actually nail it onto the wall and use it, as I said, as a touch screen. I don't know, there's all sorts of uses. Raspberry Pi in one of these, and a nice little web page, all sorts of uses. And at 90 quid, you can't go wrong. Ian Rutson asking, does the kickstand allow portrait? No, it doesn't. The kickstand is landscape only. Maybe that's a limitation, but then at this price point, making a rotatable kickstand is either going to compromise the strength of it or make it thicker. So I don't think that's a particularly bad problem here. Okay, I think it's time to have a VOT. If we can set up a VOT, Darian, maybe we can do that for a hot or not. And once we've got that up and rolling, I can then run around everybody and just get your final thoughts on this. Simple poll is thinking, aren't we all? Okie dokie. Roche, so I think you're probably a hot, aren't you?
Definitely hot.
Definitely a hot. And as I said, I bought it with my own money for our own use, and it's certainly not going to get put back in its box and thrown down in the warehouse. Lee?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing not to love about this. I commend it to the audience.
Okie dokie, Darian?
Yeah, I'm still not really persuaded that the portable side of it is useful for me, but I do really like the idea of having, once I get a slightly bigger desk in here, I've got this enormous, well, it seems enormous now because I'm hard up against it, 28-inch screen. And I'd like to have, as I used to have when I worked in the PC Pro offices, just a small display on the side, which I can use for email, instant messages, etc., just so I can keep an eye on my communications ticker. And this seems perfect for that, and reasonably priced. And so, yeah, why not? I'll say it's hot too.
Yeah, I mean, great. You're spot on there. I think feed this from your laptop of choice via interface of choice, and stick stuff on there like your Twitter feed or your calendar or that kind of stuff, and just let it sit there all day. I mean, I've had it 48 hours. I cannot make any comment about its reliability or long-term performance, but kind of at 90 quid, it's almost like it comes in a box of cereal, doesn't it? Looking at our podsters on Discord, Michael Deere says hottest item in a long while. Running Dax says very hot. I'd like at least two, please. Well, you know where to go and buy one. David saying just me not voting hot then. He says there are other things. Absolutely, I'm not comparing this to anything else. This is the only one I've bought, and it kind of works for me. So where are we here? John Bendel says there's a link there for one that's a better bargain and a more versatile mount. Maybe so. That's not what I bought. And that's not what's we're hot hardwaring this week. Score-wise, we are at 31 in favour and 1 against. So somebody has no taste, and I'll be seeing you afterwards. And it's a 4 out of 4 here. I think it's hot. And on that hotness note, I think it's time we call this an end, and we'll see you all next week. So it's bye from me and bye from everyone else.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I think I just abruptly cut off the Discorders. All right. Well, that seemed to work. I noticed at some points it sounded like people were talking over me and I was talking over other people, which might be due to lag or might just be me being very rude. So I'll find out when I check the.
Darren, you weren't rude. I think you were a bit laggy.
Yeah, no, I definitely was. But hopefully that won't affect the recording. Let's find out. Right. Cheers all.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Take care.
Bye.
Oh, I've got